Okay, so we're going to be doing the home property. Here is the problem statement that I've copied off here just so we can have it all in one Notepad++ file. You can see that we have different tax rates, we have different exemptions, and what we need to do is we need to have a receipt that shows home value, tax rates, tax owed. All right, so I copied that. You can see I've done part of this already. One thing I've done is I've taken all the constant values. So all these numbers are the numbers we see up here, and I've put them in as constants. And then I copied the this part right here, copy this, and I would paste it down here. And you can see that home value, exemptions, tax value, tax rate, and tax owed are all placed in variables and are cameled, so we don't need this anymore. Okay, and then now we're ready to do the hard part of the problem statement, and probably the most valuable to you as a coder. So all these right here are going to be populated by either calculations or logic. The home value itself is going to be told to us. So that is going to be an input, and I can either copy and drag it, or I can home value, just go ahead and put it in that way. So the rest of these all have to come up. So Control C, Control V, and then equal space equals, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. So the tax owed is simply going to be the tax value times the tax rate. So we can go ahead and put that in. Tax value times, no. Yeah. And again, we got those from here. So tax value times the tax rate. Okay. Now the tax rate is either going to be 4 or 6. So there's a decision there. The tax value is simply going to be the home value minus exemption. So let's go ahead and put that in there. That's going to be the home value minus the exemptions. All right, and then the exemptions are going to be one of these three. So now we're ready to start doing some decisions. So let's go ahead and start with the exemptions first, and let's figure out what those are. So we know that there's a disability, an age, and a military exemption. And fortuitously, these are all in this order, but the person could have gave us in different orders. What we have to do is decide which decision to make in order to be able to make this most efficient. And we want to make sure that a person makes the highest exemption that they're eligible for. So that means that we should be looking for disability first rather than looking for any other. So the disability exemption is the first one we're going to do. So we're going to say that if, push this all over, should be in here. So if disabled equals yes, then the exemption is going to be the disexemption for the disability. So we have this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste this up into my input, and get rid of the equal sign because we don't want that. And this in parentheses is going to be, I'm going to get rid of the quotes too. We don't need those. Yes or no. By copying and pasting, I make sure that I don't have an issue with case. All right, they're going to be all lowercase, just like I got from there. So the question is, what would be the next one we do? And the next one would be the next highest one. So we want to use else if. So else meaning they're not disabled. let's see if the next one is age. If age is greater than the old age cutoff. And if that's true, then the exemption is going to be equal to the age exemption. What happens if they don't meet those two criteria? Well, before we do that, we see we have age. So we need to come up here and we have to have an input for age. Okay, let's keep moving on. If they don't meet the old age, then else if, the next one is going to be the military. And if military equals yes, and again, we're going to have to ask that question. So that's going to be military, and then yes or no. Okay, so if the is yes, then the exemption is going to be equal to the mil exemption. Else exemption is equal to 0. So remember, we can do equal to 0 as a number because that is not going to change. And we have the home value. Now the home tax rate depends on another question. So let's go in here and ask that question. That it depends on whether it's their primary home or not. So we'll do prime home equals yes. Whoops. Then the tax rate is going to be equal to, whoops, the prime home rate. Else, wait, you're probably saying, wait a minute, where's that if, Mr. Brady? Yes, we must have an if. If prime, there we go. And then the tax rate is going to be equal to the not prime. So they're renting it or they're having a second home. All right. And this takes care of everything. So since we have covered everything that we need, we also have this scope up here. Only one home is evaluated at a time. There's only 3 different exemptions. And this way, if the user says, wait a minute, there is one more, well, then we have to change everything. If the exemption is less than equal, then the home value is not owed. So that's another issue that we have. So let's put that decision in, that if, let's see, let's take a look at that again. If exemption is less than 0. So what we're going to have is, we should do a decision here, and that is if the home value is less than or equal to the exemption, then tax owed equals 0, although we should probably put, rather than tax owed, let's change tax rate. How's that? Tax rate equals 0. Else, we do all this other stuff. All right, there's no sense in doing any of this if we already know they owe no tax. So that's where we'll end that. So then the tax owed would be the tax value times the tax rate, and that'll be 0. So there you go. We have now covered everything. That last one was a little bit tricky. So what do we do when we certainly don't want to have a negative value. And if it's a negative value or a 0, we certainly don't want to have to mess with figuring out whether it's the prime or not. All right, so that's it. Now we're ready to go ahead and flowchart. The flowchart is going to be different than our problem statement, and that's because we don't have to ask all these questions. Because if they're disabled, then why ask how old they are or whether they're military or not, because they've already got the greatest exemption. All right, so this last thing we're going to do is going to save this. Taking time. Thinking. Okay, so we're going to go 114. This is going to our assignment 4 lessons. And this is going to be the home tax prob statement. And again, since this is a notepad++, I have to put .txt. Okay, and we're done, and we're ready to work on the